The African Union is an organization for African brotherliness and Pan-African progress. Born of inevitability and evolved by necessity, the AU has moved from its philosophy of non-interference to that of the doctrine of non-indifference. Here to discuss the AU's doctrine of non-indifference, meaning, implication, and effectiveness, is the Nigerian Representative to the Third Permanent General Assembly of the African Union, Economic, Social, and Cultural Council. He is also the Chairperson Emeritus, Social Affairs and Health Cluster Committee, Dr. Tunji Asaolu. Good afternoon and good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
All right. First things first, we'd like to talk about this doctrine. What is it actually, and why did we need it?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we need it more, considering with the state of where we are at the moment, the history of the African at large. I think we have to also go deep and talk more about the evolutions of the African Union itself.
Oh, yeah.
You also agree with me that in 1963, the Organization of African Unity was gave back to, and it was an idea of the Africa coming together for the purpose of the liberations and all that. But as at then, they were just like a toothless dog, which cannot move mountain. And in 1999, the African leaders met in Libya.
Yes.
I think as at that time, their aim is to move further to see how we can also reorganize ourselves, moving away from where we are coming from, where we cannot even, bite and order to occupying a space where we can speak with one language, one voice. And in that Libya in 1999, the African Union was actually given back to. And in the year 2000 in Lomé, the agreement was also signed,
yes.
And the African Union, as we are seeing today, was finally inaugurated in Durban, South Africa in the year 2002. The idea behind this was to strengthen the liberations and moving African away from the hands of colonialism, and of course to also strengthen the spirit, awaken the spirit of Pan-Africanism. The spirit of that Pan-Africanism is all about what this doctrine of non-indifference is all about, meaning that we want Africa to speak with one voice, meaning that we want Africa, to move away from the level of being, moving from indirect slavery, which we are actually what we are experiencing today. We will not call it the level of slavery. We move away from that slavery, but we actually saw that we will move away from those levels. So what we are experiencing is indirect slavery, and I think for the AU, the doctrine of non-indifferences is about we coming together, speak with one voice, strengthen our democracies, and see how the Africa can actually look deeply to the sufferings of their neighbors and the suffering of the society.
Yeah. I think that's very important, the issue of being able to not just sit back at your neighbor suffering. When we moved from colonialism to, African leaders ruling their African countries, we had a slew of despotic leaders and dictators, Idi Amin and several other of them.
It's too much. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
So, like you mentioned, this doctrine now came to say, okay, it's not good enough to just condemn it with mouth. What good is saying we're condemning the genocide when more people are being killed? And so we're going to have some kind of intervention force, some kind of measures to ensure that if we say stop the genocide, we can back that those words up with some action.
Exactly. That is exactly what we are actually talking about, because in that 1999 that I talk about, it was like 5 years away from the Rwanda genocide, and even the same 5 years away from the yoke of apartheid from South Africa. So all of this, and we look at all this, that is a way of also silencing the Africa, because there is a lot of things in Africa. Africa is the most richest continent in the world. So how do we actualize this until we actually speak with one voice, which is actually what we're talking about.
Okay, now let's look back from 2002 when the AU was officially inaugurated and the doctrine has effectively been in. Has this doctrine of non-indifference been effective?
Yeah, we can see that there is a saying that Rome is not built in a day. Gradually, when we look back from that 2000 to date, I think we are talking about 20 years existence, there is a lot of achievement being done. In 2004, because of that inauguration of the AU now have the legalizing power, which actually working based on the Constitutional Act. So there is a Constitutional Act of the African Union that legalize whatever that we are also doing today. And based on this, there is achievement that we also achieved in the past, because the Constitutional Act of the African Union get back to the protocol of Peace and Security Councils of the African Union. And the Peace and the Security Council of the African Union have the responsibility to mobilize troops in areas of peacekeeping, peace buildings, and even to rebuild. And of course, luckily, we have the Commissioner of Peace and Security, and our home brother, which is happened to be in Nigeria, is currently the Commissioner of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, with Ambassador Bankole. And I think so far, the good African Union have achieved so much in these directions. We have so many policies and framework that is actually addressing this. We have a protocols of peace and security. We also have a program that called the early warning system. We have standby forces. We have also military staff committees. So these are the instruments and tools that the African Union have in place. And in so many countries, member states, they have actually raised a lot of
let me interject a bit. Some people believe that this doctrine of non-indifference has been largely a political pat on the back for African leaders to say, okay, we're doing something about it. They cite the case of Zimbabwe, where the African Union appointed, a representative to go and broker peace, and the Zimbabwe president turned him down straight off. It wasn't very effective, and several other African countries where we've not as been effective as we should. And Africa seems to always have this thing of, yes, Rome was not built in a day, we're taking it slow. But the world is not waiting for Africa. Things are moving on a very fast pace. So in view of all this, how much really can the AU do with this doctrine of non-indifference? Does the AU need something extra, or is this enough?
No, I think to some extent, we say that to some extent, we may be the problem of ourselves. We can't make mistake and use another mistake to correct it. Like they used to say that 2 wrongs doesn't make it right. We may say that we are frustrating the effort of ourselves. In a way, who are the African Union, if I even want to ask? Is you and I. The citizens of the street are part of the African Union. When we talk about African Union, we thought that it's just the building in Addis Ababa that is African Union. African Union are all the citizens of Africa, the people there. They just because the people that are managing it are, being seen as just African Union. So
I can't take any decision. You can't. The average guy on the street cannot take any decision with regards to what the leaders in African Union will do. We hear press conferences. They've decided this. Nobody asks us any question.
Let me just explain. We can actually be part of it. And that is where we are also missing it. Yes, the apex decisions of the African Union is Assembly of the State and Government, which is all the representatives of the head of state, the president meeting together as another with the higher decisions of the African Union. They take decisions. But there is a feedback mechanism. For example, the office that I also occupy is citizens representative. I'm representing the citizens in the African Union. The African Union now we are talking about, it's no longer the whole AU of those days. What is meant by African Union means that I'm inclusive union. Inclusive union means that it also includes the citizens of all the member states. So we can as well tell us that these policies, these frameworks that you have taken at the level of the Assembly of Head of State and Government is not going down well at the level of the citizens. The citizens can actually respond back. And the level they can also respond back, that led to the establishment of the African Union Economic, Social and Cultural Council, which is the AU ECOSOC. How are we making use of this? The AU ECOSOC is an umbrella of the civil society, where all the civil society comes together. And when we talk about the civil society, we're actually talking about the people, the citizens. So how do we now get back to this? So our role basically was just to say this policy, this decision that have been taken at the level of the Assembly of the Head of State and Government, the Executive Council, which is even the Foreign Affairs, is not actually going down well with the citizen. So are we now responding back? When things comes from one way, and we are not giving it back that we don't like this type of the situation.
So we can
actually believe that yes, it's going down well. So it's not
okay.
about one
I'm
traffic,
going to digress.
it's about
So I'm going to digress a little from our topic now because of what you just said.
Okay.
So what's the AU doing? I'm just hearing this for the first time. I'm a fairly educated and informed person, and I'm just hearing about this for the first time. So what's the AU doing to ensure that the African citizenry understands that they need to participate in this process so that the AU can be more representative of its people?
Yeah, there are a lot of programs that have also been put in place. Like I said, that AU is an AU ECOSOC is also an umbrella of the civil society coming together.
Okay,
and
so
our role
is civil society driven.
Civil society driven.
Okay, okay.
Just like House of Representative, we serve their own representative from their home constituency.
Okay.
But the constituency now of the part of the African Union of Base is from the citizen, which is even the civil society, elected to actually represent it. So we are the one that we stand in the gap between the government, the AU, and even the citizen. And our major role is to actually provide the advisory opinions to the member state in terms of their policies and framework and how it's being fed.
Okay.
In terms of the citizen, and which we are actually be doing it. So the work of the AU now, we have been standing in the gap. We have done a lot of advocacy. We have done a lot of education, which we have actually educated a lot of even the citizens about how AU is being going. For example, you can't even going down to even any schools now. Ask them that what is AU. They feel reluctantly because why? The way we respond when it comes to the AU, we believe that, oh, this is not the AU. But when it comes to even the United Nations, you see more responses even about that. And it is high time we think more deeply and we act like a real Africa.
All right.
It's where you have like a real Africa, then you also get the dividend. And you also know that the African...
All right, I'm going to ask you two questions very quickly, back to back. Now, I'm still on the AU. I mean, you compare organizations like the African Union with the European Union, which is patterned, close to similar. Yes. But the European Union carries far more punch, far a greater influence and weight than the African Union. Why does that happen? I mean, we see in the case of Libya, the AU's influence was weaker than foreign influence. So what does the AU need to do to be able to wield that kind of influence?
Where we see where we understand what does AU actually stand for, the policies that is to analyze even the AU. Then in the real sense, you will even know that the AU is more deep in terms of the organizations, yes, and all that. But what we need to do is for us to take inwardly, to start acting like an African, reawaken that spirit of Pan-Africanism is very key. For you to first of all admit and accept yourself that you're an Africa, you behave like an Africa. The Agenda 20, the aspiration number 6 of Agenda 20, they talk about Africa that has been driven by its own citizen. So it is when we are driven an Africa as our own, then we start getting the result. What am I saying? There is a topic like this which we actually discussed that when you close your eyes in the street and open the eyes, you will see fake like a UN, like the EU across the street, and close the eyes back again and reopen it. You will not even feel the impact of the African Union in our own state. I think until when we get to that level, by moving away, looking for what is not even real. Africa, we have a lot of things that is free. We have a lot of resources. I think our leader needs to also think deeply because what they're actually looking for was to get the money. Those people are enticing us, are coming with the money, and they want to go with the money. Not mindfully that with us in Africa, that money that they are giving to us, we have them more. If you actually utilize what we have, the resources of what we have, we may not even largely able to...
Tunji, I see you are moving our conversation more to the economic side, which is the
more reason why you see the impact of even the African in the Africa. You should see more of Africa in Africa, and we should also get to the level where you able to see the African in European countries. We should be giving them that intervention and be seeing them. Until we get to that level, then we start getting a result of what we're talking about.
Today, we have very little time left, so you can just at your camera and give the audience your final words.
Yeah, like my final word still remains as the Africa leaders need to look inward by building more of the human capital resources of Africa. That liberation that we are clamoring for, we need it more even down any other things. So the Agenda 2063 need to also be placed on the front banner. How do we institutionalize this in all the member states? I think that is where we should also be talking about, because the Agenda 2063 is an agenda for the development. How do we want to see ourselves in the next 50 years? So we need to start building our own today. So without my feeling that tree that you have planted today It's a tree that is not only you that we eat from. The generation behind us, we actually should be planning for that tree for. So Africa is very great.
Right.
So our leader needs to also sit tight and speak boldly. That's like a president of the same counterparts in the world. Yeah.
All right, Dr. Tunji, thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for sharing the time. We look forward to talking to you again, more on social and economic issues on the AU in our next visit. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.